One of the important catastrophic events in the world, that is the occupation of Iraq by USA and its followers. And before I start my talk, that I would to thanks with the great appreciation to the Swedish Association for the solidarity with Iraq and against the occupation that have been led by Mr. Mike, with a special thanks to my colleagues and our colleague, Mrs. Sheehan, and all the members of this association. Also, I would to thank the Swedish peoples and the government of Sweden about the situation that have been introduced towards the Iraqis that have been here in Sweden. I know that many thousands of the Iraqis here protected and supported by the Sweden government and the Swedish peoples. So the thanks, it is a must for this honorable people. So thank you again for your attendance, and as entrance to my talk about the situation, actual situation in Iraq, I would to concentrate on the exact description about this situation. That the exact situation in Iraq is now I can summarize as following: that there is an occupation with the followers and allies from one side, and there is a resistance, national resistance, and behind it majority of the Iraqi peoples and its groups from different directions and different divisions and components of the Iraqi people. So the followers of the occupation are in different directions and from different components, from the Arabs, from the Kurdish, from the Sunni, from the Shia. Some of them are followed to the occupation. And the resistance as a whole is represent the unity of the Iraq, as there are in the resistance all components of the Iraq as well. And if we concentrate on the occupation, that which is illegal, as you know, and it happens, and the Americans invade Iraq out of all international law, but they put the international law under their shoes, and they invaded the Iraq and destroy the state, destroy everything in the Iraq, really. Because the occupation of Iraq is not merely as a military occupation at all. If it is military occupation, they can change the regime and then withdraw from the Iraq directly. But they came with a project. They came to put a new systems in the Iraq. They remove all the institutions. They remove all the political system, social system, economic system, moral system. All of these systems and institutions were destroyed completely, and they replaced it by another systems, another institutions, politically, socially, economically, from the security point of view, army, and so on. And all these institutions, all these rebuilding of the state of Iraq, they based on the sectarian divisions, on the regional divisions, and so we hear about that there is a federation of the Iraq, and after, as you know, that the Iraq is a unity since thousands of years, and it is a place of 6 civilizations of the world, and they came and divide the Iraq into federal components and say that it is a new project for the world. As you know that the federation is when there is different parts, they unite together to form a state, a new state from them. But you cannot divide a unity and then you say that this is federation. This is a strange thing, really. So they came and rebuilt the state of Iraq into a new one to represent a project of the USA in the Iraq and the region as a whole, Middle East region. And this political process, which have been established by the occupiers, need to be or supposed to be a symbol, an example that should be applied for the region as a whole. And that is what happened now in what is called Arabic Spring. The same symbol, the same example of Iraq, which have been established by the Americans after the occupation, now need to be applied in the other countries, in Egypt, in Libya, in Tunisia, in Yemen, and now in Syria, and so on. So the same example, they need to be applied there. Really, the occupiers didn't respect any of the moral compositions of the Iraqis at all. They killed the peoples. They insult most of the families. They captured most of the innocent peoples and put in the prisons without any court. And still there are many thousands of the peoples now without introducing to the courts in the prisons. Also the killing extend to the genius persons in Iraq, that most of the scientists, most of the doctors, most of the professors, assistant professors, engineers were killed. Some of them were captured, and the others are displaced outside and inside Iraq. And according to the international statistics that is recorded by many organizations, that more than 500 of the Iraqis who are scientists, who are professors, were killed in Iraq. Those who said no, those who said we are against the occupations, everyone who said that I am against the occupation was killed. Everyone who said that I am against the political process was killed. Everyone who said that I need electricity in Iraq, they killed him. Everything that I need infrastructure, I need clean drinkable water in Iraq, which is absent completely now, they killed him. And they said that we are coming to apply a democracy in Iraq. Which type of democracy? That you kill the people when they introduce, when they raise their voices for the demands, for the human demands, daily human demands. Where is the democracy in that? It is a big lie. Really, it is a big lie. And when I describe the situation, the actual situation of my country, really we should concentrate on the Iranian invasion as well. The Iranian influence on the political process as well. The Iranian influence and the invasion of Iraq by Iranian forces happened under the favor and encouragement by the American forces. And we heard that there is a struggle between Iran and USA. Really, I cannot explain this event. We cannot imagine the situation that there's a struggle between USA and the Iran from one side, and they encourage the Iran to influence, to take place, to take a food, to put a food on the earth of Iraq. Even the political process, which is the projects of the Americans in the Iraq, which is the a summary of the thinking of the Americans put in this political process, and they catch this political process from deterioration, which is actually deteriorated. Even this political process was managed and led by Iran directly or indirectly. So where is the difference in the strategy in the region between the USA and Iran? And this is a question. Really, this is a question I want to answer. And if anyone who has an answer about this point, we are happy to hear. And when we talk about the political process in Iraq, which is the project of American, I can summarize that this political process spent since 2005 up to now more than $500 billion, which is the income of the oil selling. But these 500 billions were spent in different directions, and you can go to the Iraq and see that there were no infrastructure, there is no electricity, there is no clean drinkable water, there is no work at all. Most of the young peoples are without work. 40% of the peoples are without work in Iraq. The poverty of Iraq now is raising up to 50% of the peoples of Iraq under the level of the poverty line. And I have a statistics now I will introduce to you that 85% of the Iraqi people, their salary, monthly salary, are 100,000 Iraqi dinars, which equal to just $76 monthly per month. So it is $2.5 daily for everyone. $2.5 for every person in Iraq now, and we can see that more than $500 billion were spent because they are stolen, because they are thieves. Most of the peoples who are sharing and managing and lead the political process in Iraq are thieves. There is a massive, widespread corruption in Iraq. Financial corruption, political corruption, administrative corruption. According to the Transparency International organization, that the Iraq was ranked in the list of corruption in the world. That is, the states have been classified in the corruption field 158, and the Iraq ranked in 153 between the corrupted states in the world. So what the Americans do in my country, the Americans destroyed my country and destroyed the region, because the Iraq, under the control of the nationalist patriotics regimen, it is a cornerstone. It is a corner wall in the protecting the area from the extremists that have been now invaded the area as a whole. The Iraq, when it is settled, when it is standing, really is to preserve the benefits of the war and as a whole in this important region. So the statistics that I can talk about, I can give you a summary about these statistics, which is very important to hear, that represent the results of the occupation to our country. And briefly, I can tell you about that. The scale of destruction and extrajudicial executions, torture, oppression, and the other systematic human rights violation continues. Statistically speaking, according to several reliable sources, This human rights violation left more than 1,300,000 Iraqi civilians dead, more than 2 million orphans, about 2 million widows, more than 5 million either internally displaced or externally displaced, or refugees abroad. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis have been subjected to abuse and torture in prisons and detention centers. Thousands have disappeared or have been victims to extrajudicial killing. Nevertheless, there is no real discussion in the Human Rights Council on this tragedy, unfortunately. The Human Rights Council didn't discuss the violation of the human rights in Iraq since 2003 up to now. And this is because, of course, because of the pressure of the USA. And this is a tragedy. This is need raising the voices of all the three peoples in the world. Why you are not discuss the human rights in the Iraq? Because even those large number of killers between those innocent people. According to the Humanitarian Action Update of January 2009, UNICEF organization, as you know, it is a well-known organization, found major gaps in essential social services. In several locations in Iraq, visited by UNICEF, 70% of the population don't have reliable access to safe drinking water. It found also that more than 65% of them are without functional sanitary system. Also on 9 January 2009, the World Bank and the Iraqi Ministry of Planning published their Iraq socio-economic survey, which revealed that some 44% of Iraqis received a monthly income, as I said that before, less than 100,000 Iraqi dinars, which is $85 per month, which is less than 2.7 per day. The study showed that 87.5% of population did not have a stable water supply, although more than 80% of individuals live in dwellings connected to public water networks. As for electricity, the national grid is the main source of 3/4 of the population, but provides an average of only 8 hours per day, per 24 hours. In its periodical report, UNAMI, which is the United States Assistant of Mission for Iraq, mentioned that Iraq witnessed improvement in general security conditions. However, a grave human rights violations that are less widely reported, and the elimination of which requires long-term political commitment, remain unaddressed. Also, UNAMI itself stated that remained gravely concerned at continuing reports of the widespread and routine torture and ill treatment of detainees, particularly those being held in pre-trial detention facilities under the Ministry of Interior, including police stations. Several such cases were documented during the reporting period. Many have been deprived of their liberty for months or even years, often under harsh physical conditions, without access to defense counsel, or without being formally charged with a crime or produced before a judge. Thus, Iraqi boys are suffering inhuman and brutal treatment In the Kurdistan region, also the violence, killing and burning of women have been happening continuously. Statistics vary on the prevalence and the scale of these cases, and details are often unattainable, really. But we heard about that. Official statistics showed that between January and June 2008, 56 women have been murdered and 150 have been burned in the Kurdistan region. According to UNAMI report, the media and assessments of the situation of women, however, some officials and civil society organizations believe that there has been a steady increase in 2008 in violence, and that the Kurdistan region authorities' claims of a decline cannot be substantiated. In February 2009, the International Federation of Journalists, IFJ, published its report on the killings of journalists in 2008. It stated that Iraq remains the most dangerous country, despite a substantial drop of media casualties from 65 in 2007 to 16 last year. Due to the ongoing war on our country, and including the sanction period between 1990 up to 2003, as you know that Iraq is highly dependent on food imports and is therefore vulnerable to an increase in international food and fuel prices. Individuals rely heavily on Iraq's public distribution system, BDS. Without the BDS, the nutritional welfare of the bulk of the population would be compromised. Continued shortages in BDS under the power of occupation now in Iraq, commodities have been witnessed across Iraq. This situation, combined with the steady rise in the medical prices, is expected to have negative impact on the overall food security of those families who are fully reliant on the BDS. The health sector is suffering a severe deterioration as well. That is, it cannot meet the needs of the population. There is severe collapse and destruction of the health system in Iraq. And as you know that, for the interest, prior to the illegal wars and sanctions that have been applied for about 13 years on my country, the medical service in Iraq was amongst the most developed in the region, according to the WHO report of March 2003. But since the occupation and up to now, there is a continuous collapsing of the health system. There is losses and displacement of the doctors, well-known doctors, and the famous doctors in different specialties will be displaced outside the Iraq. Some of them were killed without any cause. Some of them were captured, and then some of them were insulted, and so on, or their families as such, and so they enforced to be outside the Iraq and outside their jobs. In addition to, there is no maintenance for the equipments, and there is a losses and continuous losses of the nursing staff, so it will this will make a severe collapse of the medical services. And tomorrow, as our professor said, that we have a talk and a lecture about this subject. Preventing the Iraqi people from their right to education continues also since 2003 up to now. where students do not have the suitable environment and facilities to study. The entire higher education system is in a state of collapse as well. Attacks on the universities, killing of the staff and academics, displacement of the others, insulting the others, and this happened by the occupation troops or others from the government and from the militias since the invasion have driven away students from continuing their studies. While in the March 2003, UNESCO, which is one of the organizations that related to or interested in the education in the United Nations, said that except for the 1991 sanction period, which is continue from 1990 up to 2003, the education system in Iraq was one of the best in the region, with over 100% gross enrollment rate for primary schooling and high levels of literacy, both of men and women. The higher education, especially the scientific and technological institutions, was of an international standard, staffed by high quality personnel. Now they are collapsing and some of them are closed completely. The basic infrastructure of the country has been destroyed by military operations since 2003. Several Iraqi cities have been severely destroyed under the pretext of attacking terrorists, while the result is massive killing of innocent civilians. Humanitarian aid and journalists were prevented from entering these cities. More than 2/3 of the population has no access to clean, drinkable water, as we said before, or a functioning sewage system. Corruption, as I told you, is a widespread in different directions, from up to down, from left to the right, and in different places, financial, administrative, political corruption. They are thieves without exclusion, really, from the Prime Minister and up to the President. They are thieves. They are gangs, really. They are traitors to the Americans. The occupation forces have used and are using weapons that are banned by international law or widely considered unacceptable and inhuman. They used cluster bombs. They used depleted uranium. They used white phosphor in Fallujah and Basra, and all their operations extending from the south of Iraq to the north of Iraq, raising the level of cancers in Iraq, raising the levels of leukemia in Iraq, raises the level of congenital malformations. Now, leukemia, and this is my specialty, it is a branch of my specialty, that is in blood disease, and we have statistics that leukemia in Fallujah children, between Fallujah children, raising up to 10-fold than the usual percentage in the world. And the congenital malformations as well also increased in predictable percentages because of these chemical and the nuclear radiations that have been used by the weapons, bombs and exploded on the innocent peoples. Well, in another violation of the Geneva Convention, the occupation authorities have changed most of the basic laws and created a new special tribunal, international humanitarian law, applying to occupying powers, prohibits the creation of a new law. This is according to the international law, which is to prevent the occupiers to create a new law. But the occupiers, as I said, that push the international humanitarian law under their shoes and change all the laws of the Iraq according to their benefits and according or what have been introduced a base for their project to be applied in the Iraq. Attacks on minorities continue. Since the invasion, the dangerous situation in this respect was the displacement of Christian families from Mosul, the provincial capital of Nineveh province. A large number of families have fled the city of Mosul, which is in the north of Iraq, in 1 month, October 2008, as a result of threats and targeted attacks against them. The Ministry of Displacement and Migration of the occupation government now in Iraq reported on 13 October 2008 that up to 1,286 families 1,286 families have fled since the beginning of October 2008, while it remains unclear who is perpetrating the intimidation and violence in Mosul. But there are several reports and eyewitnesses account confirm that this was done by the Kurdish militia in order to expand their domination in preparing to the local elections. Members of the Iraqi current parliament stated the same. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, and very sorry, that despite of all these deplorable facts and alarming reports, the Human Rights Council, which has related and it is a part of the United Nations, has never discussed the human rights situation in Iraq after the invasion of 2003. Nor has the Higher Commissioner brought it to the attention of the Council in accordance with her mandate. This situation is a challenge to the entire human rights community and for all three peoples in the world and all governments. The Human Rights Council can no longer remain silent on Iraq and should be so. It must open an in-depth discussion on this major human rights tragedy. We urge the Council and the High Commissioner to seriously examine this situation in its entirety as one of the extremely urgent issues that need to be incorporated in the HRC agenda. As a first step, we urge the Council to reinstitute the position of a special rapporteur in Iraq, which was dismissed after the invasion of 2003. These are the statistics that I would to introduce in front of you about the results that happened because of this illegal and catastrophic occupation of our country. Maybe of benefit that I will discuss some issue about what has been called national reconciliation that have been mentioned by the government and that have been raised by many organizations, humanitarian organizations. That is the national reconciliation may be an entry to the correction of the situation of Iraq. They mean by the national reconciliation is that pushing all the patriotics and pushing all the groups of the resistance to enter the political process, which is the project of the occupation. This is the meaning of national reconciliation. That to push all the peoples of Iraq to enter in the projects of the occupiers. And as you know, this is unfair for the free peoples in the world. So when we are discussing this, we can say that what are the fate, what are the rights of those who are killed in the Iraq? Who will compensate the destroyed infrastructure of Iraq? When we enter in a reconciliation and enter in the political process, which is the project of the Americans, who will compensate the Iraqi state, which is destroyed completely by the occupiers? And who will compensate those who handicapped and displaced and lost their jobs and so on? Who will compensate the people who are subjected to the nuclear weapons and the chemical weapons? Who? And how we can enter in a reconciliation as a resistance, as a patriotics, as a national people, and forget our country and forget our sovereignty, forget our dignity and so on? How? Is it possible for the free peoples in the world to forget the liberation of their countries from the influence and from the international dictatorism? Really, it is national dictatorism. Mr. Bush, Mr. George Bush, and the administration of USA insult America by the invasion of Iraq. Insult the American army when he invaded Iraq, really. Because when you see the American soldiers in Iraq, they are insulted in the Iraq. Because I heard that Obama, the president of USA, when he accepts and receives the return back soldiers that have been withdrawn in December 2011, he said to them, "You perform a very good job and a great job in Iraq, but you lost us very much in Iraq." He said that. I heard from CNN, by my ear. And he said that, do you know, he direct his speech to the soldiers, American soldiers. Do you know how many soldiers, American soldier, take service in Iraq and kills the Iraqis? He said that 1.5 million. 1.5 million of the soldiers have been in service, in job, included in the war of Iraq, because there is continuous turnover, and the continuous number is 180,000. The continuous number, the constant number.
Right.
And he said that, do you know the number of injured soldiers between these 1.5 million? So he said that you did a great job, but you give a great loss and a great cost. And after he finishing his speech, the correspondent of the CNN make attachment with the one of the soldiers that have been in service in Vietnam, also soldiers, asked him that why Mr. Obama don't mention the number of killers in Iraq. And he said that, well, it is well known for us that for every 5 injured who are injured, there is 1 killer. Soldiers of the American have been killed by the action of the resistance, by the action of the national resistance. And so Mr. Bush, by the invasion of Iraq, insult the Americans, insult the America itself, insult the American army. Really, this is the truth. And we see, in my eye, I saw the American soldiers in Iraq, they are crying. They are crying because of the crimes from the side, from one side, and because of this insult from the other side. So I return back to reconciliation. Our meaning, or what we are explaining about this reconciliation, that we can reconciliate with anyone. I talk about the patriotics. I talk about the national movements in the Iraq. I talk about the national resistance, the opinion of national resistance, the situation of national resistance about the, or the imagination of the national resistance about the national reconciliation, that everyone from the Iraqis, everyone from the Iraqis, even those in the political process, who recognize the Iraqi rights, there's no problem with him at all. This is the principle. We should put the rights of our country as Iraqis, put the rights of the table, and if we recognize these rights, and we did for the implementation of these rights, I think that the reconciliation will be possible. But if, for example, that the rights of the Iraqi people, which have been published in the program of liberation and independence of the resistance, include that for the government as well as for the occupiers should recognize that the resistance, national resistance, is legal representative of the Iraqi people. Is legal representative. Second, liberation of the prisoners. Third, complete withdrawal from the Iraq. Fourth, compensation and take the responsibility of the war and sanction. In sanction, which is extended from 1990 up to 2003, the losses of Iraqis who are killed by this sanction is 1,750,000. I know this number really. In the Ministry of the Health, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, this is a constant number. 1,750,000 were killed during the sanction. And during the war from 2003 up to now, 1.5 million were killed. So the people from Iraq who are killed, about more than 4 million. In spite of that, there is many thousands who are handicapped, and widows and orphans and so on, and displaced peoples and so on. So the compensation is a must.
Yes.
I take the responsibility is a must. Following up of the criminals and the states which are sharing in the occupation is a must, and it is a job of all the free peoples in the world. Really, everyone who is a moral thinking, everyone who has any religion background, any moral background, any political, honest political background should take this in account and should take this in interest, his interest. So, for example, eradication of the political process and the eradication and cancellation of the laws which have been created in the under the occupation also is one of the principles of this program. So these are the rights of Iraq when we put on the table, and these are the program of the resistance as well. When we put on the table, I think that the reconciliation is very important. About the resistance, I think that it is of very benefits to show that the national resistance of Iraq follow a defeat by the military forces of the occupiers, according to the losses I mentioned before, and according to the financial cost. As you know, that according to the Stiglitz, who is one of the famous economists, American economists, and he got Nobel Prize in economy, and he is a consultant in the White House during the I think Clinton administration. He said in his book, which is The War of $3 trillion, the cost of the war on Iraq is $3 trillion. Trillion, not billion. So it is the cause of the financial crisis in the world. Isn't it?
I agree.
Yeah. So this is the performance. This is we are prouding with the performance of our national resistance. That is push the American and enforce the Americans to be withdraw from the Iraq. It is not the agreement between the traitor al-Maliki and the USA and Mr. Bush. No. No, the agreement is the cause of withdrawal of the Americans from the Iraq. This is a big lie. The cause of the withdrawal of the Americans from the Iraq is the big losses because of the actions and performance of the resistance, which is 60,000 of the people, of the soldiers of the Americans were killed, and $3 trillion is the cost of the war. In addition to the political and the moral breakdown which has followed America, in addition to the crimes in the Abu Ghraib prison and so on. This is the enforcement of the enforcement division to take by the Americans to be withdraw. This is the cause, and this is the performance. We're proud by our national resistance, really. So the resistance, as I said, that faces four powers. Four powers. The first power, big power, is the occupation. As you know, that America came in 180,000 soldiers with big air forces and with big missile forces, and we are in Baghdad, and we can see that 100 of the missiles come together. That is the programmed missile. شو يسموها الصواريخ هاي مالتهم اللي كانت تجينا الطائرة لا مو توماهوك. Cruise missiles. They are in hundreds, came together from the sea, from the air, from different places, really. And the resistance faces this power and perform this performance that I mentioned. This is first. The second power that the resistance face in Iraq is the Iranian influence, which happened in the accordance and coincidement and with the cooperation with the Americans. And the Iranian said that we are introduced to the Americans most of the facilities to invade the Iraq. They said that. The vice president of Iran said that, Abtahi, he said that we helped the America to invade the Iraq and Afghanistan. They said. And Mr. Najad, Ahmadinejad, who is the president of Iran, came to the green zone under the defense of the American airplanes. And he walking on the red carpet in the entrance of the green zone. So where is the difference between, or where is the struggle between the Iran USA, we heard about. I again raise this question, really. So, the resistance facing this influence and faces this force, the Iranian influence, by military action as well, and by the political work also. Through the election, the resistance supports some peoples to enter the election and change the balance in the political process. And that has happened, really, in order to eradicate the Iranian influence from the Iraq and the Iranian control. But the Americans need that, no, those who are win should be out and bring the others to the political process who are followed to the Iran, who is al-Maliki. The third force that have been faced by the resistance is the terrorism, Al-Qaeda. They try to make some overlap between Al-Qaeda and terrorism and the resistance. Really, there is a big difference. And this is a big crime. This is a big crime on the expenses of the victims of Iraq. And this is also a big lie on the world, that they say there is no resistance in Iraq, but there is a terrorism, there is explosion on the innocent peoples, there is destruction of the markets, on the streets, on the ila-akhiri, etc. No. There is a difference between the national resistance, which direct and targeted the occupiers only, and prohibits the killing of the innocents. But the resistance protects the innocent peoples. Its program is to protect the innocent peoples. Its program is to catch, to enforce the occupiers, to recognize the rights of the Iraqi peoples. This is the job of the resistance. And I mentioned now the program of the resistance. But Al-Qaeda and terrorists, it is a part of the occupation, really. And I can tell you about a subject maybe not heard about it. That Al-Qaeda divided into 3 parts. One of the parts, and this is by documents, really. One of the parts is related to the Americans and supported by the Americans. And they supplied by the Americans. The Americans gave them the weapons, gave them the explosions, gave them the cars which are exploded in the markets. The aim of that is to overshadow on the action and the work of the resistance. And to say that there is no resistance, there is an anti-terrorism and Al-Qaeda in Iraq. The other part supported by Iran. And there are many leaders of Al-Qaeda who live in Iran, till now, up to now. And the aim of Iran from supporting this part of Al-Qaeda, in order to say that there is sectarian struggle in Iraq. Because this part of Al-Qaeda, supported by Iran, killed the Shiite part, and at the same time killed the Sunni part, in order to say that there is a sectarian struggle, there is a sectarian war in the Iraq. And really it is not. There is a political struggle rather than social struggle. There is no sectarian division in the society of the Iraq. All the Iraqi tribes, from the north to the south, both, some of them are Sunni, and the others who are cousins, who are brothers, are Shia. Those who are north to the Baghdad are Sunni. For example, the tribes of Al-Juburi, which is a big tribe in the Iraq. the part which is north to Baghdad are Sunni. The part which is south to Baghdad are Shia. So there is no social division, sectarian division, and this include all the other tribes really. Even the families you can find in Baghdad and in all cities of Iraq that the father from Sunni group and the mother from Shia group in the same family. So you cannot divide the society of Iraq. It is political struggle. It is a political sectarian division, not social sectarian division. So the Al-Qaeda, the big part supported and supplied by the Americans, and the other supported by the and supplied by the Iran, and each of them have its aim, its goal. This is for confusing the peoples about the action and situation of resistance, and the other is for initiating and the creation a struggle according to the sectarian divisions. The other small part may be aiming the occupiers, small part. So the whole parts and all the media directed to appear, to exaggerate the action of Al-Qaeda in Iraq and overshadow the actions and operations of the resistance at all. But according to the American reports, that the Al-Qaeda percentage in Iraq not more than 2% as fighters, not than 2%. Maximally it's 5%. This is a report of the Americans. They announced them. So the America faced this power. This is the terrorism. When I said the resistance facing four forces, the first, as I said, is the occupiers, the occupation forces. The second is the Iranian influence and invasion. The third is the terrorism, and the fourth is the sectarian parties and the results of the occupation. The militias. Every party in Iraq now is a militia. Is a militia. It is not parties. They are gangs, real groups of gangs. Al-Da'wa party, which is a traitor to Iran as well as America, as you know. It is established in Iran, supported by Iran, growing in Iran, and now cooperated with the Americans and implement their project in Iraq. This is a Al-Maliki party, which is called Al-Da'wa party. It is traitor party. Have a militia and kill the people according to the nationality. Al-Sadr militia kill the people on the nationality, according to the nationality. High Council, Islamic Council, what's called High Islamic Councils of Al-Hakim party, it has a militia which killed the people according to the nationality. Kurdish militia, Masoud party and Jalal party, etc. They are militias and gangs and thieves, really. 500 billions of dollars were stolen from Iraq by these militias, and there is no services at all. Really, this is the situation. And lastly, I can say a few words about the present situation of the resistance and the present and the future program of the resistance. As you know, that the Americans, we say that we withdraw from the Iraq. Withdraw from the Iraq. And the exact position, I can summarize that the organized people, the organized, or the fighters, the actual fighters, the Marines were withdrawn from the Iraq. But the Americans left many forces, left 6 bases, big bases, including air forces with its equipments and stuff, left missile forces with equipments and stuff. They left security companies, and according to the Ministry of Interior of the occupation power of Iraq, they said that these security companies include 45,000 fighters, and the embassy of the America, which is the biggest in the world, include 15 of the official persons, and so on. So the total number is more than 100,000 have been left in Iraq. Those peoples are fighters. They have tanks, they have powers, they have guns, and so on. They have weapons and did operations, and so military operations, and so on. So the resistance put the program, the present program, the current program, and the future program. Just a few minutes.
Yes. It's okay. Yes.
Yeah.
A few minutes.
The current program, the future program, according to the situation, that is, the resistance will continue until complete liberation of Iraq, until the removal of the political process and the results and correction of the situation will continue without stoppage, but raising its operation really. And the second principle of the program of the resistance is an open dialogue with all the Iraqis, with all the countries, with all the free peoples in the world. And the third principle of the program of the resistance for the future is the follow-up of the criminals, is the follow-up of the states which are sharing in the occupation, and harbor there the responsibility of the war and the sanction and the occupation and the invasion. And also the resistance will follow the occupiers to compensate the Iraqis as a state and the populations because of these big losses, as know. And these crimes, as you know, that cannot be fallen with age, cannot be fallen with years, because the international law preserve the rights of the countries which are invaded, and the crimes should be followed whatever the time is long, even after many thousands of years, for example. Yeah, if our generation cannot take the compensations and cannot harbor the USA and the Americans the responsibility of this war, I think that the other generations will do. And we should we constant and catch the rights and raise the rights of our country up and in all directions. The last message I would to raise now, that for the countries, for the free peoples in all countries, for the governments, that is, I said, with big belief, really, with big belief, with the facts, that the future in Iraq is for the patriotics. The future in Iraq are to the resistance, to the national resistance. The national resistance.
Please give Mama a chance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go on, sir.
Well,
Finish.
yes. With the resistance, to the national resistance. Yes. To the national resistance. So, it is of benefit. Yeah, it is of benefit for the all the countries, including the Swedish government and the Swedish people and the Union Europeans and all the, even for the Americans, that should open the window of relationships with the patriotics in Iraq, because the future for them to preserve the benefits of all the wars in this important area and to establish the settlement. And thank you.